Hi there, community. It's my honor to be here in San Jose, California, hanging out in Studio 360 at App World 2024, F5's premier application security and delivery conference. Joining me today is DevCentral MVP Sebastian Maniak. Sebastian, can you introduce yourself and give us an overview of what you're going to demo today?
Yeah, thanks for having me. So I'm an F5 consultant. I focus around deploying, managing, and helping customers mostly in North America to optimize and build their F5s, either migrate or install new devices. And today I'm going to be talking about how to create a self-service portal. We're using ServiceNow to orchestrate and automate F5 changes or workflows itself.
Yeah, awesome. I mean, I've seen you build a lot of cool tools and toys, so I'm excited to see what you have to share with us today.
Awesome. So I'll jump into the environment here and really show you what we're going to do. Really, this is a diagram where on the right-hand side, if I kind of zoom in, what we're going to do is take an existing kind of change that happens in a production environment using ServiceNow, and we're going to insert a flow into it. So ServiceNow has two things. It has ServiceNow as an ITSM, or to store all your data, your objects, your assets, and it also has a flow designer where we can create API calls. It's like having Postman on steroids almost. It's like this nice little GUI that lets us build calls. So we're going to really create a ServiceNow ticket where we're going to have somebody approve that change or that task. And then once that task is approved and sent to change management, the flow automatically gets kicked off. So we're always creating some type of workflow to orchestrate our F5 changes itself. So I built this environment. It's all built in Terraform, so anybody can deploy it and they use it. If we jump into our devices, so here we have an F5 that has no configurations on it. It's pretty clean. We're going to jump into our ServiceNow catalog. And I'll demo it and show you how it works. Then we can kind of walk through it and take a look at some of the features itself. So here we have our F5 build server catalog. It's a pretty straightforward catalog, kind of trying to make it easy and friendly for anybody that's not an F5 user to be able to configure it. So pretty simple. We select our environment. We could have many different environments. We select what kind of deployment we're doing, either a classic or core, basic F5, or an AS3 declaration. We specify the action, so we can create, update, destroy virtual servers. And we can give this a name. So we give this application a name of demo, and we're going to give it an IP address. And we'll just run this on port 80 just for simplicity. If we're doing SSL offloading, we can change that to 443 and then insert the certs. And in here, we can also update certs. So if we have existing devices, we can actually update the actual SSL certs automatically on those devices. We can include iRules if we want for this deployment, and we can customize this however we want for that end user to be able to interact, or what we want them to interact. Maybe we don't want them to update certs. Maybe we don't want them to do specific policies. So we can already define that ahead of time.
And can you do that at the template level here versus just what's allowed on the permission side on the backside?
Yeah, that's right. We can do it on a template level. Here we can even have granular access that, for example, if I'm building a pool or a pool group and I have an IP address, and if this IP address doesn't match the schema that I want it to, like it doesn't fit that F5, I will deny the user of putting that IP address. I'll say, hey, this is the wrong IP address for this server, or it's the wrong IP address for this F5 device itself.
OK. And I'm assuming you could customize the templates as well just to present 100%. Available schemas?
Yeah. You can customize it. You can even have an API call to call some type of IPAM to populate those automatically,
OK,
which is pretty nice. Because everything we're doing here is just a REST API call. So let me add another server here. Just give it another IP address, 192.168.10.10 on port 80. So when a user requests, this ticket gets created. Once we click on the submit button, somebody has to approve it. We want that existing change management that exists in our enterprise. So a RITM ticket gets approved. Then after it's processed, we're going to get a request in here in a couple seconds that I need to approve this request.
Right.
I want to review it. I want to see what's happening on that. And once that is approved, the change or that workflow gets automatically kicked off and created.
And is your validation engine, is that in your templates ahead of approvals, or is there some built into the approval process?
There's some built into the approval process, and there's some built into the workflows.
Okay.
So it's very customizable to do it. So here we have the approval came in. I can review it in plain English. So I don't see code, I don't see anything else. I can understand what is being done. Or even have an application person understand, or someone that doesn't know F5 configs, right?
Right.
Very easy. So
it abstracts away that domain-specific language.
Exactly, yeah. So then I click on the approve button, change management is notified, and all of a sudden a workflow gets kicked off on my device that when I refresh, it now builds my F5 pools, or sorry, virtual server, it builds my pools, or it builds my nodes itself in here, my servers that are created. So this allows us to kind of have this self-service portal for building things. And not only can we build services or build AS3 or build other F5 configs, if we have some type of incident, we can attach this incident to a workflow to orchestrate something to happen, like a new WAF policy or a new vulnerability happens, we can automatically push it out through a workflow process itself. Or if we want to do simple things, again, like if I want to make a change on my existing F5. So for example, if we're going to change an AS3 configuration, I want to click on update. And inside this F5, we actually have a configuration deployed here, just called tenant prod. And all we want to do is, as a user or the application owner, I want to understand what the name or what servers are there, actually, and I want to update them. So I can simply just do tenant underscore prod, and I click on the search button, and all of a sudden, a script gets kicked off or a workflow that goes ahead and populates all my fields from that device. So then I can update the SSL cert if I want, change the port, change the IP addresses, the persistence, maybe add a new iRule in there. I can now remove pool members, so I can click on remove. I can edit this however I want to, change IP addresses. And I can submit this request, once again, for an approval process. And then we can take a look at this approval process. Once it's approved, we see all the information that it's going to be changed. Then that change automatically gets kicked off and initiated by the workflow itself. So it allows us to kind of have this full self-service portal for anybody, or even the app teams, or anybody to manage.
That's pretty fantastic, too, because you have a built-in documentation history, your audit history. All of that is in the tools you're using for auditing
right,
anyway.
Yeah. And the nice thing about this is this flow designer, it's a real simple way to build logic with simple if statements, else if. We drag in variables. And if we take an example of how we built that AS3 config, we're really specifying, hey, if there's a cert, if I select create, so just an if statement here, then I dive into the action, which is just a REST call. All I'm doing is having a REST call that I'm connecting to an environment, which is a variable that I've dragged and dropped in here very easily. Then I'm making a declarative post towards AS3, have the tenant name that's filled in from my catalog, and I have my template here for AS3. And this template's always the same. It's always, across my environment. I'm using a single template that it has this consistency, right? So when I log into an F5, I don't see, new VIP underscore new or some, wild names that we've seen. I create consistency across this environment. And this is what makes these whole workflows work. And all it is a simple REST API call with my AS3 in here itself.
Yeah, it's really cool. Yeah, you build your nomenclature into your templates that prevents it on the backside. So
exactly,
that's fantastic.
And with that, you can add other things to log, like you mentioned, auditing, logging in here, notifications. For example, we can send out emails to the individual who did it if it was successful. If it failed, we can create more error checking in here. And it's a simple way, I find, to get into network automation or even orchestration, especially with most organizations already have ServiceNow in their environment.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic. Well, thank you, Sebastian, for joining me and sharing your expertise with the class. And class, thank you for watching. For more App World 2024 content, follow us on LinkedIn, X, and F5.com, and we'll see you out there in the community. I'm Jason Rahm for DevCentral.